Hi guys, how are you? Back here today with our second episode of Inside the Ring. Guess where we've got a name from?
Because we're in a ring.
That's because we're inside the ring. Today I've got Senpai Jordan with us. Now, the point of what it is that we're doing with these sort of things now is getting some interviews and getting an understanding and a feeling of the man behind the gi and the story that led up to Jordan becoming who he is today. So we're going to be asking Jordan a few questions and putting him on the spot. And let's dig a little bit deeper and find out a little bit more about Jordan Eaglestone. So
It's been a long time.
So tell me, Jordan, where were you born?
I was born in New Zealand.
In New Zealand. What part of New Zealand?
South Auckland, Middlemore. If anyone knows where that is.
Not too sure. I know it sounds like a beautiful place. We've got a number of members here from New Zealand. We quite often say that the best Aussies are New Zealanders. All right, so you went to school there?
Yep, I was in school there. We moved over here when I was 13, so right before I started high school.
Right, okay. Yeah. I remember the first day that you walked in here. I still remember it.
I don't like where this is going.
I still remember it. Very, very shy, very, very timid, and not really all that sure.
Yeah, it was an awkward time. It was an awkward time, what with obviously moving countries, of course, starting school, just a time of many big changes and just having trouble adjusting to them at the time.
Oh, I bet. What was it like as a teenager changing countries?
Difficult, really difficult. Mainly because once I started high school, I started in year 8. And by that point, everyone had already solidified their friend groups.
Exactly right.
So I was trying to make friends with groups that had already been established and solidified. Luckily enough, one friend in my class was actually born in the same area as I was, so we got fairly close around there. But apart from him, that friend making friends with friendship groups that were already established was probably the most difficult part of things.
Okay. So before that, obviously you trained in karate in New Zealand.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about where you started, your instructor's name perhaps, and a little bit of history behind that.
My instructor was Sensei Chris Hall. He was a third dan in Chidokan karate, which was a style based around Shotokan karate. I started training with him because one of my friends at the time was training karate under him. And believe it or not, I had an incident where I was manhandled and choked when I was about 5-6 years old. So I wanted to do something to help defend myself.
It wasn't like an episode of The Simpsons where
No.
Where was your father, was it?
I can see him behind the camera wondering.
Roger, was it you? Did you instigate the greatness?
But yeah, and I just started it because I didn't want to experience that again. It was a point style based karate.
Yeah.
So I did that for 7 odd years. How old was I? Yeah, about 7 years before we moved over here. And that made obviously transitioning to a full contact style all the more difficult. But we trained in a little community centre. No mats, just the normal carpeted floor, and with 2 other dojos around the city where we would go to train at the Hombu for gradings and on the weekends and such. As I started getting a little bit older, there started being talk of karate at the Olympics. Once there was that was where my goal and my teacher's goal kind of aligned for where my vision was for
At
karate.
that point, were you thinking more in the point sparring version or kata? Or both?
Kind of both, really.
Both.
Both. We would wake up at 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and I'd start training at 6 till about 1, doing kata and point sparring. Obviously, it would be nowhere near as difficult as full contact sparring. I'd be dying if I trained full contact karate for 6 hours, but that was kind of the direction and the dedication that we went towards with getting me ready for that.
Now, of course, when you came over here, you were obviously had those same goals. You had that same drives, that same ambition. And from what I remember your mum saying, that you'd been to a few other places around before you came here.
Yeah.
And I think you were living just across the road at the time.
Yes, we were just living across the road at the time. Yeah,
right.
We saw the sign, but...
But you were pointed, obviously your teacher had pointed you in a certain direction.
Yes, he had given me the name of someone else. I can't remember the name now, it's been far too many years. But he didn't have any dojos in the area that weren't 2 or 3 hours away.
Yeah.
So he directed us to someone else. And we knew that Casey Elite Martial Arts is right across the road, but I wanted to honour what my teacher had told me to do and at least check out what he had recommended.
Yeah.
And we went there, and I didn't really enjoy it too much, to say. It wasn't a matter of the teacher or any of the students. It was just the content that I was getting wasn't what I wanted, and I couldn't feel that the goals that I wanted to achieve could be achieved in that place. Whereas when we came in here, we walked in the door, and as timid and shy as I was, watching the class go on, I knew I could achieve what I wanted to achieve if I trained here.
Do you remember what we were doing at the time when you walked in? Was it sparring? Or?
Yeah, beating the crap out of each other. Yep. And coming from point sparring, that was rather intimidating, to be honest. But I knew I could make something of myself here.
I think I remember sorry about the wind, we've got a really windy day here, and a roller door that tends to make a lot of noise, so please forgive me for that. I remember one of the first conversations that I had with you was, I think your dad had said that you'd been doing some point sparring, and my first thing that I said was, so did I. I've been doing point sparring for 12 years, and I understood that, and I think we had that conversation about how easily transferable that skill set was into full contact, and I think that sort of put you at ease pretty much straight away.
Yeah, that put me at ease. It was difficult to make that adjustment, but once I made it, it was there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then you've come over here, you've started training. Obviously, your goals at that point had kind of changed. There was obviously a shift. Where did you see that shift was?
That shift kind of came really spontaneously. As you know, when I started here, I wasn't a fighter. By no means, no stretch of the imagination was I a fighter. But I enjoyed karate with every ounce of my being. And so every opportunity I got to train, even if it meant I was getting the crap beaten out of me by everyone else in the class, I was there. And I think it was one squad class, back when we had squad on the Wednesdays, that's how long ago it was.
Squad on Wednesdays?
Yeah.
I can barely even remember that.
And it was Senpai Gav that was taking the class. And we were doing sparring, and it was just one-on-one. He just called out random people that were around the same size and age and strength and experience to spar together. And he was just kind of thrown into the deep end against, what was it? It was Sajjad.
Sajjad, yeah.
So we remember how he was. It was a very sink or swim moment, and
Yes.
that was when everything just kind of clicked together.
Yeah.
Where I was able to just make that quick transfer over from point sparring to full contact, and the endorphins and the thrill afterwards, that was kind of where I went, wow,
Yeah.
I've got to do more of this.
Yeah. I guess I felt the same thing too with the difference between point sparring and full contact sparring. As you know, I grew up as a full contact fighter up until my 20s. before going to point sparring. And I remembered that thrill of that full contact fight moment. And Sensei Tony and I would quite often spar each other in the dojo when we weren't supposed to be, literally in the corner belting the crap out of each other, with their instructor standing in the corner going, these guys are just idiots, and just let us go for it. And we loved it. And I remember, again, there was a pivotal moment for me in my life where I was faced with a situation. At that point, I'd been in the point sparring system for quite some time. And there was a point where I was threatened by somebody. And of course, the first thing I did was I threw a punch to his stomach and made contact and pulled straight back. And then I realised, hang on, I need to do a little bit more here. I did. Luckily, my old mongrel attitude sort of came back into play, and I was able to get myself out of that situation fairly quickly. But that was a deciding moment for me that what it is that you drill every day is what it is that you that your mind relies on at those high stress points in time. So, yeah. Tell me about your first WKO competition.
Oh. Well,
do you remember it was back in the basement?
Yes, I remember very well. Yeah. I remember the pain very well.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Well, I think I was 14 at the time. I was 14, yeah. And we went in. It was WKO tournament. I think it was the state championships.
Yep.
And there were only 3 of us in the division. And the other person, from memory, had pulled out the moment they had seen my opponent. Jacob, thank you very much.
Who at that stage, we were an independent style at that stage, Seishin Karate. We hadn't yet become Shorin Kempo. And then Sensei, now Shihan Nino, his son, was pretty much at the top of the young kids division at the 14 to 16-year-old division. And he was really, really strong. So tell me about when you faced him.
All I remember is waking up. That's all I remember. All I remember from that was just waking up to you screaming, "Jordan, get up! Jordan, get up!" What? I think about 5 seconds into the fight, I copped a big kick to the head. And as disheartening as that was for the first competition, obviously, that was where my first goal kind of set in for fighting. It was, I'm gonna beat him next time. I'm gonna beat him next time. I'm gonna beat him next time. And then obviously the goals have evolved from there. But that was my first competition. Ended in a horrible knockout on my part, but set up my goals and set up everything else that I wanted to do as a part of being a fighter.
I think what I remember most about that particular day was after seeing how hurt you were emotionally, there was that worry of, is he going to get through this? Is he going to get past this? And I remember discussing this with my lovely wife Fleur straight after it, and she said, "Do you think he'll come back?" And I said, "Look, I'm pretty sure he will. I think he'll get past this. I think this is going to make something of him." And the reason why I knew that was because I knew your father, and I knew the commitment that you'd already sort of put into the club, and it was one of those moments where it could have gone this way, it could have easily gone that way, but you chose for it to go this way. And I'll never forget the look on your face that day when you walked off that ring, how upset you were. And ever since that day, I have never seen that look on your face ever again. That look, I've never seen again. I've seen many other looks. And you've pretty much faced, besides international events, you're pretty much in Australia undefeated at the moment.
Yeah, it's been. I can't remember. I think it was the last time I lost was Jacob.
Yeah, very difficult for us to get a fight here in Australia. So tell me about your first international tournament.
Oh, my first international tournament. I think that was the Junior World Cup in Osaka, and Wow.
That was big, wasn't it?
Wow, that was a real eye-opener.
We used to think we ran a big tournament. We'd have 200 entries in our little club tournament, big formats and the arena, and we'd have, maybe 300 or 400 people in there at any one time, and we had maybe 10 officials, and thinking that that we're doing okay. And I remember that first day that we walked into that stadium.
Wow.
Wow.
Got my number 913. Gosh, that was a real eye-opener in terms of how big the karate scene is over there. And as a fighter as well, that was a real eye-opener. I think as a heavyweight, I'm pretty small. I'm pretty small as an open weight fighter. Not so much in height, but in weight. In weight, I'm fairly small and compared to the other fighters. So when I came up against my first international fight and saw that, I'm 83 kilos. My opponent is 63 kilos. I've got a 20 kilo advantage, 20 centimeter height difference. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is good. I got the crap beaten out of me.
Well, there's the Australian level, and then there's the international Japanese level, and that's, I suppose, the difference. A lot of people don't really understand. They think they fight here in Australia, and that the level that we got here is pretty good, when the reality is, some of Australia's best fighters compared to the Japanese A grade, there's no comparison at all.
No comparison.
And here you are at the top of your game here in Australia, the big fish in the small pond, now the small fish in the big pond.
And I think understanding how the referees ruled it as well was quite different. I mean, in Australia you see a lot of big punches and they're looking for that one-shot kill. Whereas in Japan it's all about pace. Accumulation. Yeah. And I was looking for that one-shot kill, especially being much bigger.
Yeah. I remember being on the side of the ring saying, just keep punching, Jordan, don't stop. And I could see you waiting, trying to line him up for that big shot, which you're famous for here in Australia. But of course, he was too evasive. He was, certainly very, very skilled. I do believe that he was one of Shion Ichikawa's students.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Famous for his footwork, of course, and his circle work, which we've replicated here very, very well. Thank you very much, Shion.
Awesome.
All right, so that was your first event, and I remember very, very clearly, even though it was a loss in the first round, for us, it wasn't about the win or the loss. It was about the experience, and you walked away from that with a whole new enthusiasm, completely renewed, and knowing what it is that we had to do. I think at that point we knew very, very clearly what we had to do, and the direction that we had to go, and we got straight back home, straight back to work, not just as you, but as the whole SEMA team. And the whole club was behind you at that point too, which was just amazing. And since then, of course, we've raised a number of other firefighters too. So
yeah, that first competition overseas was really stressful. Would stressful be the right word? It was. We were jumping into an unknown compared to now. We look at all the tournaments that we go to now: the Okinawa Open, the Rookies Cup, the JAC. We've all had different fighters that have had an experience there, but that first one was really harrowing in the fact that we didn't know what we were getting into. We knew they were good, we just didn't know how good until we got there.
Yeah.
So once we had that experience and we got back, we kind of had that goal. We knew where the level was and what we needed to do to get there, rather than trying to reach this unknown level because we didn't know how good the level was that we needed to get to at that point.
It was funny too, because again, back here in Australia, we couldn't find fair and impartial tournaments to be able to go to that gave us a platform. Everything was always geared against us. But to be honest, I'm grateful for that. I am, and as disappointing as it was at times, when you look back at it now, I'm extremely grateful for that, because it gave us a different perspective, a different insight, and a different way of approaching things. And for us, it was just, well, we'll just have to knock them out. So that's what we did.
That is what we did, yes.
So I think from then on, the motto was, don't leave it in the hands of the referees, of course, and make it very, very clear. And I think we've done a very, very good job of doing that, which your commitment to that goal has driven many others behind you now to be doing the same thing. And we've now got this crop of young students who want to be just like you. So when did it first dawn on you that you'd sort of become a role model? And what kind of burden did you think that placed on you?
Well, that's a hard thing because I was really young when that had started to happen. I was barely 16. And I think it kind of I started to realize that these kids were looking up to me once I started teaching the classes, and I could see the look in their eyes when I was explaining things and showing off what they can do once they get to that kind of level. As a whole, it didn't really hit me how much of a burden it was until I started coaching Ruby and Cassie when they were getting ready for the Rookies Cup.
You were pretty much thrown into the deep end, I suppose, because of my health conditions at the time. I can't remember what it was, whether it was the throat stuff or the first hip replacement. I can't remember exactly what. But tell us about that first experience where I had to step back and give you the ropes and say, Jordan, I need you to go to Okinawa and I need you to look after my own daughter, which I trusted you with, and of course Cassie, her first time competing overseas as well.
Prior to that, they were both already my students, so I had already known them well enough to know what they could handle. But taking a step back from the fighter's perspective and having to step into the coach's shoes, it's rather stressful because you can, rather than just having to do the job, get in the ring, fight, go back, train hard, get in the ring, fight, go back. Now, these girls' success relies on what I give them, not what they give themselves. You know, at this point with the amount of experience that I've had personally, I can sort of get myself ready for fights. I need guidance here and there, and I need partners to train with here and there. But once you've had enough experience, you know where you need to do and what you need to get to. But
yeah, that's sort of more for you and the higher level team. That's more of an automated response now. I just basically say go, and everything's good. But you guys are the ones that nurture those that are underneath you. And now we see at international tournaments while you're fighting, we've got these other juniors that are fighting as well, and you're swapping from role to role. You're swapping from fighter to coaches as well.
Yeah, being in that coaching position was rather difficult because you have to look at them and you have to analyze what they're good at, what their weaknesses are, and then you have to change your focus on, do I want to focus on building these strengths, or do I want to patch up the holes? And that's a tough balance. That's a real tough balance.
That's a down to the last minute decision, what's happening mentally, emotionally, physically, the moments before the fight. That's and to have that level, and I've got to say, to have that level of understanding as a mentor, coach, senpai, teacher, whatever it is that you want to call it, that is such a rare quality. I need you to know that. That's such a very, very rare quality. And there's not many people your age, which is why I'm interviewing you today, there's not many people your age that have that insight. And I think that most of our coaching staff here would agree you're kind of the go-to guy for most everything that I know. And you're kind of like my backup memory bank, where if I can't remember something, I know exactly where to go to find that information or that name or that technique or whatever it was that we picked up from a seminar.
Most of the time, still can't remember that one.
But I sort of considered you my hard drive, my backup hard drive. All right, well, tell us about your last fight. Because that was a cracker. That was an absolute ripper. Best performance that I've seen so far.
My last fight was the Shorin Kempo 40th Anniversary World Cup in Thailand.
41st.
41st, sorry, Sifu. And I fought in the openweight division.
And your first fighter was against one of Cancho Ademir da Costa's fighters.
Yeah.
Famous. Do you remember his name?
Diego.
Diego.
I can't remember his last name, but his name was Diego, one of the WKF's highest champions at the time. Yeah, that was rather interesting.
It's funny because his experience, well, not so much your luck thereof, but his experience in those dying seconds, the only thing that saved him.
I had a talk with one of my friends the other day. I would have punched him if I was there with him because of what he said. But that fight, I've been saying over and over again, right up until the last minute, I had that, and that I was a stronger fighter. If I had just taken that step back, I would have won. And to be fair, yeah, I would have. 9 out of 10 times I would have won that fight. But my job is to make sure that 1 out of 10 chance doesn't happen. And at the end of the day, it's not the stronger fighter that will win the fight, but the fighter that wins is the stronger fighter.
Yeah.
And that's what he said to me. And at the time, it took me a while to process that.
It's a bit of a conundrum there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so say that again.
It's not the stronger fighter that will win the fight, but the fighter that wins is the stronger fighter. At least at that point in time.
Stronger physically and tactically.
Yes.
Because I remember right up until the very end of that fight, I'm watching it the whole time thinking, he's got it. 3, 2, oh no. One lucky kick, that was it.
Yeah, one lucky kick, that was painful. I was dizzy for about an hour afterwards.
I know that feeling well.
No concussion, thankfully. But that was hard. That was a hard loss to take. Probably the hardest loss since my first fight against Jacob. Mainly because it was right there. It was right there, and to have it taken away from me at the last second, that hurt. But it's fueled my drive again.
Well, exactly right. It's all experience, considering you're only 20 years old.
Yeah.
And how old was Diego? Do you remember? 32, 33?
Something around there.
With
30s.
With 10 plus years experience, and certainly a lot more international experience, because obviously here in Australia we don't have the level that they have overseas. All things considered, talent, yes. Hard work, yes. Luck, yes. But when you put all three together, I think that's what we've got in you. And I've always said that hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. And you're very, very talented. And I suppose as your mentor and coach, I'm here just to make sure and ride your ass all the time that you're working hard all the time.
Yeah.
And we never take gifts for granted. And we as skillful as you may be, skill is nothing without that work ethic behind you, which I think you're starting to understand. But that being said, me as a coach, I'm learning when to back off. Let you breathe for a little bit too. So we all grow. So yeah. So to finishing up, all of our young viewers that are out there at the moment, what's the best advice that you can give them on, say, actually in the last 2 weeks, it's all been about goal setting. So what would your advice be to these young people out here on setting a goal, or the mental preparation that's required?
I think for me personally, I like to have one big goal to strive for. One end goal there, and you use the other smaller goals that can be managed and achieved over short periods of time to help work your way up to the point where you're skillful enough to be able to achieve that that top end goal. You know, at the start, that top end goal was obviously the black belt. You know, so you'd set your little goals. You know, white belt, yellow belt, orange belt, green belt until you got up to the top. As your goals get more complex and more complicated, you're going to need those extra little challenges, chunks. You can't just have one big goal. You need to have little goals to back them up, because that's where you're going to get your extra motivation from.
Do you think visualization plays a big role in that?
I think so, yeah. Being able to see it and see yourself achieving that will help out a lot. You don't want to make it obviously unrealistic, of course. Your goals have to be something that's realistic and achievable, but being able to visualize it as, well, for mine, being able to visualize mine as far away as it might seem and unrealistic at this point in time, I know that with all the other little goals that I've got in place, one day I'll be able to get there. You know? And just hanging on to that little side of seeing yourself achieving that high-end goal at the end makes everything you do far more worth it.
Knowing the young man that you are, I have absolutely no doubt, and I look forward to assisting you in those goals.
Awesome.
So thank you very much, Sam by Jordan. Everybody give him a round of applause. Did a fantastic job today. Good job. Okay, so tomorrow we've got Sensei Jack Wareham coming down. He's from Long Fu Pai in Long Warri, so he's coming down for tomorrow's interview. So that's going to be a really good one as well. Thank you again to Senpai Jordan, and we look forward to talking to you all soon.
Awesome.